Today we're going to be doing a complete roast from beginning to end using Artisan on the Kaleido M2 Sniper. This is a second generation roaster that is out on the market right now. Just came out a little while ago, and the good people at Espresso Outlet have given me the opportunity to use this roaster, give it a try, and we've done a couple videos with this already. You should check out my first impressions review that I put out in my last video, and also take a look at some of my previous videos on the basics or the secret sauce of roasting coffee at home. And that's what leads us to this point. Now we're using Artisan to help direct us to roast great coffee. I've roasted some really great coffee on this Kaleido M2, but I have not used Artisan to control the roaster. This is the first time that I'll have had that experience doing it with this machine. And I did it roasting an Ethiopian coffee, and we're going to do that roast right now. Before we get started, I want to welcome you to the Virtual Coffee Lab and encourage you to hit the like button and also consider subscribing to this channel. I've got new content that's coming out regularly, and this is the place to get some knowledge and experience about home roasting and roasting on different types of roasters here at the Virtual Coffee Lab. So thanks for joining me today, and let's get into this roast. The first thing that we're going to do is we need to understand and get to know our beans before we know how to roast this coffee. We haven't put a profile together, and we're going to do that right now together. The beans that I'm roasting are a Ethiopian Sidama natural process coffee. This is a very high altitude coffee, about 6,000 feet. You can see here 1,900 to 2,100 meters above sea level. The varietal type is an heirloom Ethiopian bean. This is a very small bean in size, and it's a natural processed bean, meaning that the seed was removed from the cherry and it was laid out to dry for anywhere from 8 to 21 days, depending upon the weather. Also, this is a very high density bean. I did a video on how to measure the density of coffee beans, and this is really important because we want to know how hard or how dense these beans are, so we'll understand how it's going to behave and what kind of heat we can apply to it while we roast. So you can check that video out, but I measured this out, and I weighed 200.7 grams of green coffee and divided that by 250 milliliters, and that gave me 0.8028, or removing the decimal, about 803 is the number for density, and that reflects a very high density bean. So what does this translate to? What does all this mean, and why am I doing it? I'm doing this so, as I mentioned earlier, I know how much heat I'm going to apply to the beans in the beginning of my roast and throughout the roast, as well as understanding what I might be able to expect the response of those beans. How are they going to behave? And this is all going to help me do that, and this is how I'm going to create this profile. So based on the information that I just shared with you, as well as the batch size, which is going to be a total of 300 grams, here is my approach to roast this coffee. My plan is to have a total roast time of between 9 minutes and 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Why am I roasting the coffee for that length of time? Well, I'm roasting on a drum roaster. This is going to be on the shorter side of time. I'm not saying it's really short, but it's not a long roast, it's not a medium roast, it's a little bit shorter than a medium length roast, 9 to 9.5 minutes. My phase percentages, for those that are interested, my goal is to have about half the roast devoted towards the dry phase, and then the middle phase, about 33% of the total roast is going to be devoted towards that time, and then 17% is going to be devoted towards the development side of the phase. Why did I pick these phase percentages? Well, I chose 50% because this is the first time that I'm roasting this dry process coffee on this roaster, this drum roaster, using Artisan, and I want to stay in control of this coffee, so I don't want to apply so much heat and have a super short roast. I'm still planning on about a 4-minute and 30-second dry. That is kind of what I'm aiming towards there. 33% about is what I'm aiming for the middle phase, and I'm doing that to allow the development of these different reactions to take place to the beans, to allow a lot of flavor development and that's why I'm spending that much time. If I have it be a little bit shorter, then I'm going to have a pretty punchy, slightly tart end of the acidity, and I want to have kind of a juiciness going on, so I'm letting this go a little longer. And then I definitely want to have a slightly shorter development time because I want to have less roastiness and more of the origin notes in the coffee. So I'm looking for a lighter, medium to medium light roast that's going to have some fruit forward acidity in it and not really much roastiness. Now, if you want to have more development, then you would have a longer development time. If you like your coffee darker, then you'll want to have a higher end temperature. My goal is to have an ending temperature between 193 and 195 C. So medium light roast coffee with lighter body, fruit forward acidity is the end result. Tasting notes on this coffee, I'm hoping for some jasmine, some berry flavors, some sugar sweetness, and I think I'm going to be able to get that based on the roast profile that I have here. All right, I've pre-warmed the roaster for a good half hour, and now I've kind of did a reset and I let it go for another 3 or 4 minutes. And here you can see that I've got a stable bean temperature and exhaust temperature. And so now I'm going to go ahead and reset the roaster. I'm going to put the 300 grams of beans into the roaster and get this started. Charged the roaster at 170 C, went ahead and hit the charge button, dropped the beans into the roaster, and immediately you see the bean temperature plummet. You'll also notice that it is going to turn around here in a very short period of time. I've set the energy at 65%, that's the burner, and I've also set the value, the total high-end value temperature at 220 degrees. What does that mean? Why did I set 220? With this machine and the software, I have to tell it what its maximum temperature is, and then if it hits that temperature, it will then turn the heat off and go into its cool down mode. I don't want to have to worry about that, so I've put it at a temperature I know I'll never reach, which is 220 C. Okay, turning point happened at 42 seconds and at 84.2 Celsius. You can see the blue line, that is the exhaust temperature, and that is climbing, gradually climbing. You'll see that the rate of rise, that red line coming from the bottom, has already shot straight up. And let's see, let's talk and identify a few other lines here on Artisan as we're looking at it. You'll notice that the estimated dry arrival time is at 4:03 right now, and that's going to change and it's going to work its way. As my rate of rise begins to drop, that time is going to get longer. So you can keep an eye on that and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm going to be looking at the bean color to monitor the progress during dry. And I mentioned that I wanted my roast to be 50% of my roast time devoted towards the dry phase, and I'm doing that to have control over the roaster. I don't want to get the roaster so hot and have so much heat applied that I make my dry end target time of about 4 minutes and 30 seconds and then have so much heat in the roaster that I'll just fly through the second phase and I won't be able to slow the roast down. So I am making sure I have enough energy to meet my target time, but not so much energy that I end up rushing through the rest of the roast. Okay, we are approaching the 3-minute mark, and I have kind of been watching my energy. Right now I'm at 65%, and that's because I want to be sure that I'm not applying too much energy. So The dry phase is going to give us an opportunity to set ourselves up for success. To time our first event and to make that first event is going to assure us or help us achieve control to get to the second event. So the first event we want to get to is dry end. The second event we want to reach is first crack. So now we are about a minute away from our dry end. And if you take a look, you'll see this rate of rise is dropping. And should I be worried about that? Well, if you take a look right now, we're at about 17 on our rate of rise. There, I circled it, 17. And it's going to go up and down a little bit along the way. But that represents the number of degrees in Celsius change per minute. So we are increasing at 17 degrees Celsius per minute on our rate of temperature change increase. And I don't want to be at 25 when I hit dry end, because then I've got so much heat that I'm never going to be able to slow it down. So I'm already working my way down to what I would consider a safe, controlled point at dry end, and that's going to be around 15 for my rate of rise. One of the things I noticed about the Kaleido roaster is that it likes to get hot easy. You can easily get the roaster hot, and it can slow down if you just turn off the heat completely, but it likes to hold on to its heat. And so I want to be careful and try to maintain as much control as I can. Okay, we've reached dry end. Been looking at the beans. You can see me working the tryer there, and the beans are dry, and I marked it at 435. That is dry end. And now our next target is going to be first crack. So my rate of rise is 17, and it's maybe a little higher than I want, and I've been kind of noticing that I'm having some challenges trying to control the heat. I don't want to crash and lose my momentum, but I don't want to fly through the roast either. So I'm trying to get a nice rate of decline, and you can see I'm kind of wallowing there around 12 right now. So I'm headed in the right direction, and I'm trying to maintain control, and so you're going to see me manage my heat settings here. That's why I'm looking at the screen and I'm clicking back and forth, changing my burner rate, my percentage. I'm now down to 55%, and I just bumped my air, and I'm watching the beans. I want to kind of make sure I'm headed in the right direction, that I'm not applying too much heat and not allowing the heat to just crash and for me to ruin the roast. My goal again is about a 9.5 minute roast, 9 to 9.5 minutes, and I'm kind of looking at that 9.5 minute mark down at the bottom timeline, and I'm kind of aiming for that point, and I'm doing that with one eye, and the other eye is looking at my rate of rise to make sure that I am maintaining a downward controlled trend. Now I've got my burner down to 40 because I know that I've got kind of an upward trend that's starting right now, and I don't want that. So I've upped my air, I've lowered my heat a little bit. And again, during this point of the roast, the beans are absorbing heat. They are getting, the mass of the beans is getting hotter, and so you should be able to apply less energy along the way during the roast to be able to have that downward trend. Okay, we're at 8 on our rate of rise, which is a great thing. I'm getting really close to first crack. First crack usually happens around 188 Celsius on this roaster, which I'm not sure what that equates to in Fahrenheit. I'll put that on the screen. Toggling my energy back and forth, you can see my red line that's horizontal beneath my rate of rise, and that is me going up and down with my heat and just trying to maintain this rate. You know, it was a lot easier to use the tablet on the Kaleido compared to the Artisan here, and some of you might be a little concerned about that. But what I mean is that you'll see more squiggly lines here, which gets me a little more nervous because I'd like to have a straight line. But that's the settings in Artisan. That's the probe on the machine. But I'm going to say mostly the settings on Artisan because I think there's more smoothing that's used on the tablet, so you don't have the squiggliness. So I'm not too concerned about this. My Mill City does the same thing, And here we are at first crack at 7 minutes and 53 seconds. So we are in good time. We are on track of what I wanted to do with my phase percentages so far. And now I just need to get my rate of rise down because I don't want that temperature. I had a planned drop temperature between 193 and 195, and I'm already at 193 degrees with only 5% development. So I'm in trouble here. I'm a little outside of what my plan was, and I'm going to be at a higher temperature probably than I anticipated. And so you can see me trying to work and get this rate of rise down. We're at 3.8 on the rate of rise. That's a good place to be. I just wish I could have kind of had my temperatures a little lower. I wish I wouldn't have had those humps right there after first crack because that kind of sped me up. I'm already at 196.2, and I'm going to try not to have it go too much higher than that. I just need to get a few more percent development to be able to finish this coffee out. And we are almost ready to drop. I got the cool switch turning on. Fans are going to turn on, and I'm going to drop this coffee at 2.3 on my rate of rise. And here we go. Coffee is dropped. You'll see an immediate plummet of my bean temperature. There it is. And wow, that went quick. That went really quick. So I would say overall, it was a successful roast. I didn't burn the coffee. I didn't have any huge crashes or any huge flicks. I had some bumps along the way, but again, I've experienced the same type of thing with my Mill City, and I think some of that can be corrected through some adjustments in the software to make it look prettier. But the reality is, I'm not trying to make things look pretty. I'm trying to let you see exactly what happens here with my roast. The beans are drying. They're going to be done here in just a minute. And take a look at this. I've drew a line from dry end down to my drop, and you'll notice that's the trend that I was looking at. That's my one eye looking at 9 minutes and 30 seconds for my drop time, and we dropped at 9:20. So we dropped when I wanted to drop the coffee. The only place I really missed was the temperature, and our ending temperature was 197. So I'm like 3 degrees higher than I wanted to be. Not really thrilled with that, but the truth is going to be told in the cup as well as how much moisture loss we had on these beans. These beans were tiny. These beans were very small, and it's a dry process coffee, so that was going to push me along really quick. Take a look at this. This is the chart. This is the analyzer that Artisan offers. It's really cool, so that when you're done roasting your coffee, you can see all the specs. You can see the line that's drawn. This is the target line that appears, that the trend that you should be following as you're roasting coffee. And you can see also my phase percentages here. So I did a 49.1% dry phase, a 35.4% middle phase, and a 15.5% development phase. Overall, I'm really happy with that. I think that it's all going to be about what is in the cup, and I'll follow up with you in a few days and let you know what I taste. My overall impressions continue to be positive with the Kaleido M2. Thank you again, Espresso Outlet, for letting me borrow your roaster and check it out. It's been a lot of fun, and it has been a very well-performing roaster. Okay, it's been 5 days since I've roasted this coffee. It's had a chance to rest, and we're about to go in for the taste. Before I do that, though, I want to thank you for joining me today. And if this is the type of content that you've enjoyed, consider being a subscriber. You'll get automatic notifications when I put new videos out. And also hit the like button, too. That would be awesome. That helps other home coffee roasters like you find my channel, and that's always a good thing as well. Okay, so I weighed this coffee out, and one of the things I was wondering about was the roast level. So one way to determine roast level is moisture loss. How much moisture has left the bean during the roasting process? And I weighed the coffee out, and it was 12.8% moisture loss. That throws that coffee into kind of the medium to medium light range, and that's exactly what I wanted. So I'm excited about that. Bean color looks really good. Take a look at the beans. Here they are, whole bean, and then the ground bean. And I used the Kaleido, glass Kaleido, to be able to brew this coffee. Total brew time was about a little less than 4 minutes. I brewed 21 grams of coffee and 350 grams of water. And I used a pretty fine grind setting on my grinder. So it's kind of like beach sand, I guess would be a good way to describe it. Okay, I'm going to go in for the smell first and then the taste. Coffee's been sitting out after brewing for about 10 minutes, so it's definitely cooled down, and it smells really fruity. It's got kind of a sweet, fruity aroma. Yeah, it's definitely, this is a fruit bomb, definitely a fruit bomb. The juiciness just wraps around the tongue. It's delicious. It's not bitter. It's definitely got a lot of berry notes in it. There's like a blueberry note and like a blackberry jammy kind of a note in there. It's really, really good. There's, like I mentioned, there's no bitterness. There is a sweetness in this cup. It's juicy. It's pleasant. If you like this type of coffee, if you like fruity coffee, this would be one you would want to try for sure. This is an Artisan profile, so I'm going to make that available to you. It'll be in the description, so you can download it if you have Artisan and you want to check that profile out. I'm not sure if it would work for whatever settings that you have in Artisan, but you can give it a shot. Let me know in the comments if you were able to open the file or use the file. For those that are using a Kaleido M2, it should work directly for you, no problems. Also, you can just try to replicate this profile on your own. If you have a high-density Ethiopian dry processed coffee that's got a very small bean and you're looking for a medium to medium light roast, then take a look at the profile that I used, and it should get you pretty close to some really good coffee. So I hope that works well for you. If you've got comments about what you saw me doing here, or if you've had an experience where you've taken your roast, you've taken your coffee details, and you've put together a roasting profile and crafted some coffee from that, how did that go? What was your experience? And how do you change that up between different types of coffee? I'd be interested in hearing how you put together your profile. Please share that with me. Okay. And if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today here at the Virtual Coffee Lab. It's great to have you here, and I hope you have a great week roasting. We will see you next time. Take care.